What's going on, guys? Alex here, and I'm back for another video. This is video number 3 in the Everything I Know series about creative real estate investing. If you haven't seen the first two, be sure to go watch those. I explain why I am doing this and what I'm transitioning to next. Just to remind you, I am transitioning to an online business, and for that reason, I want to share everything that I know that I've learned about within creative real estate investing. Out of the years doing this, out of the thousands that I've invested into it, I just want to give it all away and share. So in this segment, I'm gonna talk about sandwich lease options. All right. So keep in mind this Everything I Know series. Obviously, I mean I can't. Most of the videos I create are like 10 to 15 minutes long, if that. So if you have any questions about any strategy, about anything that I share, that I cover within each video, then be sure to leave it in the comment section, because there's no way I can cover everything that I know within each video. So be sure to leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer your questions if I can. Okay. So this one's on sandwich lease options. Now, sandwich lease options, the main things you need to know are that it's 3 paydays, right? So sandwich lease options compared to wholesale lease options is you are not assigning a contract. All right, you are entering into a contract with the seller, and there's more paperwork involved than the wholesale lease option one. So entering into that, and then you are finding a buyer. You aren't making this. You are making this exclusive, by the way. This contract you want to make exclusive, meaning the seller can't find their own buyer. They can't sell it from under you, type thing, right? With wholesale and lease options, I do make it non-exclusive for reasons I've mentioned. This sandwich lease option, you don't want to do that, all right? And you do want to make it contingent upon finding a buyer so that you are not on the hook for a monthly payment, because there is some risk to this strategy. Now, there's no down payment you have to put up. There are no closing costs, but you do have some risk in that you are taking over a seller's payment, all right? You're not taking it over in the form of a subject to, where you're taking ownership of it, but you are basically saying that you are going to cover their payment starting X date, right? Starting X month. So the benefits to you, you are going to get 3 paydays for taking on a little bit of risk, all right? So the first one's going to be the payday 1, which is where you get the upfront deposit from the buyer. And in wholesale and lease options, that's the only payment you're getting. That's the only compensation you're getting. But with sandwich, that's just the first one. The second one is the monthly spread. All right, so the seller's going to have a mortgage, let's call it $2,000 a month, and you've discovered that you can actually rent this for about $2,400 a month. That monthly spread is going to be yours. So you're making $300 to $400 every month. That's why you want to stay in the middle. That's why you want to create a sandwich lease option. And then the third payday is the cash out. This is when your buyer goes to qualify with a bank, and they do get qualified, and they cash out the loan, and whatever equity that you are expecting, you get that in lump sum. All right, so 3 paydays on average, about 50 to 70,000 seems to be the average around the country. And then there's also a 4th payday, which phantom cash flow is a term by Robert Kiyosaki. Right, it's basically the debt pay down on the loan. So you're keeping all the debt pay down, and I'll explain how you can negotiate that with the seller, so that you're receiving all the debt pay down, which makes your payday 3 much bigger. That's how you can get to bigger paydays, right, on the payday 3 side. So I mentioned there's little risk. There's no down payment, no closing costs. The only risk that you have is that if there's a default with the buyer, then you're on the hook for the monthly payment, right? You can always give the property back. It's in all the agreements, but again, that's not a good business practice. It's not good for your reputation. You're also giving up a lot of the profits, right? Let's say you don't want to make a $2,000 a month payment, but you're expecting a $50K payday on the back end, or you're going to miss out on $300 a month during the middle, right? So you want to keep some of that upfront money that you got on payday 1 in reserves in case there's a default, right? Maybe keep like 3 to 6 months in the bank, and in case there's a default, you can use that to pay for the payment, right? So you don't use that to spend with. Use some of that as cushion in case there's a default to pay for the property. The terms here are going to be better for you than the wholesale and lease option, lease purchase option, because it's more profitable, right? It's more profitable because you're taking on a little more risk. here's a basic formula. I mean, there's no cut and dry formula for any of this. Everything is negotiable at the end of the day, but a pretty standard. I mean, some people even give the seller full price, but you want to get it down a little bit. You don't want to give the seller full retail price, right? You want to negotiate. You want to so somewhere around like 90 to 95% of retail value is what you'd want to offer. You want to negotiate where you cover their mortgage. So the mortgage has to be reasonable, right? It has to be a reasonable payment where you can actually profit in the middle with the monthly spread. So meaning that you can collect more from the buyer every month than you pay the seller every month, and that's the difference. So at least $300 a month, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, because if you can negotiate a price that's 80% of retail, right? 80% of retail, and a huge back-end payday, then you don't really care about the monthly spread as much, right? So it all depends. Everything's negotiable. But on average, $300 a month cash flow would be good, at least. The term, you want it to be longer, because the longer you hold the property, the more you earn, and the more time you have to fill the property and to get it closed out if your buyer were to default, right? So a minimum of 3 years is an average. And then because you're taking on some risk and you're handling the process, and if there's a default, you're on the hook. There's no money you have to provide to the seller, right? So it's zero down completely. Now the seller's problem, here are their benefits. Their problem is semi-alleviated. It's more alleviated than the wholesale lease option, because with a wholesale lease option, you're sending the buyer back over to the seller. It's their responsibility to manage it. They're on the hook if there's a default, right? But with a sandwich lease option, you're on the hook if there's a default, and you're managing the process, right? You're collecting the payment from the buyer. So because of that, it's less headaches, less problems for them, right? So a seller who wants a headache-free option where they can potentially move to another state or just want nothing to do with the property, they just want to collect a check every month, even though they know that their name is on the loan, this is a more, the problem is more alleviated, but it's still not completely alleviated because they're still on the loan, right? It's not like you're cashing them out completely. So the terms are going to be worse for the seller, but better for you, of course. And how to negotiate this. So what I would do is I would give them two options, and it's going to be the wholesale and lease purchase option, or this option, the sandwich option. Now, keep in mind, it always depends on the seller situation, right? So if you're familiar with owner financing, you probably give them that option too. If you're familiar with other creative methods, then you're going to want to do that, depending on what the seller tells you about their problem. But when you're first starting out, you want to have little risk as possible. So that's why I would give them two options, because for me, it's less risk. And basically, you would make, if you see there's a big spread here, right? There's a big spread you don't want to give up, then you would make this option look good, right? And you'd make the wholesale and lease purchase option, don't give them full everything, right? It's going to make that one look much better than this one. So you can always structure your offers appropriately based off what would be most profitable for you, but it also solves the seller's problem, I guess, so to speak. There's different ways you can look at it, right? Again, I'm just coming from the perspective where I want to either do a sandwich or a wholesale and lease purchase option, because I'm a novice and because I don't want to take on any risk. That's why I pursue it this way, what I'm telling you. But someone who's more experienced, someone who's been doing this for a long time, who has no problem taking whatever option is best for the seller, they're going to go with that. And a lot of times they'll probably want to structure some owner financing type creative option, right? But we're talking about sandwich here. So that's how I would do it. You want to get off price, right? You want to get off price. What do I mean by that? If a seller says they want $350 for their property, no, let's use $300. Let's say they want $300 for their property, and their loan is $250, right? Most sellers are going to think, I want $300. But you want to get them thinking equity, cash out, right? So you tell them, all right, I will take over I will make your payments for you every month, and at the end, within X amount of time, either on or before 3 years from today, then you'll receive $50,000 cash out. Why do you want to do that? The reason you want to do that is because this is what gives you the debt pay down. This is what gives you the phantom cash flow. You want to make sure that you basically let them know, here's what you're going to receive at the time of cash out. It's going to be $50,000, right? You're not going to receive $300. You're going to receive $50,000. I hope that makes sense. And the reason you do that again is because that's going to give you the debt pay down for managing the process. I hope that makes sense. Now, for the buyer, it's the same situation for the buyer. I mean, they only want to deal. The only difference is that they're dealing with you direct instead of the seller, right? With a wholesale and lease option, then they're dealing with the seller. I'm sorry, they're dealing with with the seller because you're assigning them back over to them. With a sandwich, they're dealing with you, right? So it's actually more comfortable for them because they're actually dealing with you. So yeah, this is basically everything regarding with Sandwich. It's not that much different. It's just another tool in your tool belt. It's a way for you to make bigger profits. I mean, 50 to 80, 50 to 70K seems to be about the average around the country. Wholesale and lease option, 10 to 15 or 5 to 15. You know, it's only one payday, but less risk for you. I'd say get started with this once you've done one or two assign outs or one or two wholesale and lease option deals, because then you have a buyer's list, you have more confidence in yourself, you can take on more properties, you can take on a little more risk. Or if you have a mentor that you're partnering with or you know, who's familiar with this, and you just jump right into it, right? Because there are some nuances to this and that I don't want to get into right now. So again, if you have any questions at all, guys, be sure to leave them in the comment section. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at all within this strategy, within any other strategy. I'm sharing everything that I know. Just want to give it all away. And if there's anything else that's you want me to cover, all right. So I hope this was helpful, and look out for future videos.